Hey everyone, John here, and Steam NextFest is now live. There are so many cool indie games for you to discover and play, and for rail shooter fans I highly recommend Wild Blue Skies. It's heavily inspired by Star Fox 64 but with a really cool cel-shaded art style, so give that a go. And now that I've been a bit positive, let's be really negative, because Panzer Dragoon Zwei just got a demo for the brand new remake. And for those of you who maybe don't know, I am not a fan of the first Panzer Dragoon remake, I am not a fan of the House of the Dead remake, I am not a fan of the House of the Dead 2 remake. However, I do go into these games wanting them to be good. It would be crazy to rub my hands together and go, oh, let's see how badly they did this time. I do want this to be a good remake because I love Panzer Dragoon, and Zwei is such a special game. It's one of the coolest games on the Sega Saturn. Unlike the original, it basically runs at 30 FPS most of the time rather than 20, and even though it runs better, the action is also way more rampant. There's so much going on. There's on-foot sections, there's flying sections. It is such a good sequel to the original. And so I tried playing the remake and something felt off immediately. It was kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what it was, but then I put the two side by side and immediately it was obvious. So in the Zwei remake, you're actually moving a lot faster than you are in the original. It doesn't really feel like it though for whatever reason, but the dragon is moving through this environment far quicker than you would the original game. And while playing, I was feeling like there was a lack of impact a lot of the time. And that may come down to the visuals. I mean, the animations of the explosions are way more obvious on the Saturn than they are on the brand new PC version. But that wasn't the lack of impact. The lack of impact is simply because there are barely any enemies in this demo. It's hard to say whether that's going to be true for the main game as well, but based off what we're playing here, it's a very empty game, and they've made up for that by making the dragon just move faster through it. Let's take this area here. On Sega Saturn, the sky is just full of enemies blasting at you from all angles, flying through the sky, there's some turrets up on the walls, and on the new demo, there's just barely anything going on. And just to speed up this footage a little bit so you can see exactly how quickly the new version gets to the end where the little boss of this area is, it is drastically faster than Saturn. So while Saturn has a game going on, where you're defeating and interacting with all these enemies, the PC version just lets you run through this area quickly to get to the end of it. I don't understand. And another part of why this version lacks impact is the music. I mean, take a listen to this a moment. This is with the default audio options. This is how the game gives it to you. Raw. Okay. You can move some sliders up if you want to, but this is how they mixed it by default, and you can barely hear the music. And all the sound effects of the blasting and the shots just don't sound as powerful as they did on Saturn. Now I will say visually, this level doesn't give you the best impression of what the game can be, because even on Sega Saturn it's a very grey and drab level. The game itself gets a lot more colorful as it goes on. There are jungles, there's far more robust environments than this. This is meant to be a desolate battlefield. And Saturn definitely does look very one-note a lot of the time too. But I think it's intentional, and you get all the color from the explosions of all those enemies you defeat, whereas on the PC version, like, you just look at the gray and browns everywhere. It doesn't have that contrast that Saturn gets from the gameplay. And something that I just cannot understand that has not been rectified is that cursor. This was true in the first Panzer Dragoon remake as well. For whatever reason, the cursor, which is a huge part of the gameplay, the experience, the presentation of a rail shooter, is in the foreground in 2D. And that was never the case on Saturn. This has always been a 3D cursor, so if your dragon is in front of the cursor, it will simply go behind them in full 3D space. Whereas in the remake, it's just layered on top all the time. So you can't really get that impact of feeling like you're aiming at things behind the dragon. It just feels like part of the UI rather than part of, the experience. It's such a strange decision, because the Saturn did this all the way back in 1995, and fast forward to today, you'd think you'd match the parity in the presentation of the game that you're remaking. That this is a huge part of that visual identity, and it's so strange that 2 remakes in, they still haven't grasped that. So is this an improvement over the first Panzer Dragoon remake? Well, so far, based off this one level, absolutely not. It feels worse than the original Zwei in basically every conceivable way. The visual identity is not as strong, the audio is far worse, the gameplay has nothing going on. I do not like what they're doing here. There is a lot of feedback to take on board to make anything that's even remotely on par with the Sega Saturn game. Now, I will say, with the original Panzer Dragoon remake, they improved it a little bit over time, so when it launched, the Dragon was just flapping its wings and bouncing everywhere, which was very distracting, and they did fix that, and that has been also, brought forward to Zwei as well. So any of those growing pains that remake had do seem to have carried forward, and that's good. It's good that they haven't, gone backwards to reincorporate problems they had originally. They have fixed those along with what's going on here. But if you have any means to play the original Sega Saturn game, you really should do that instead. Whether it's playing on original hardware or emulation or whatever it is, I think you will have such a better experience than playing this remake. I do hope that they resolve a lot of this. There is a lot to resolve, but I do hope they do, because we never want a bad game. We're always hoping for a good one. And maybe they can redeem themselves. I don't know, but right now, it's not looking good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If they ever get towards Panzer Dragoon Saga, I am greatly concerned. It's not something I'm really yearning for. I'd much rather have a simple emulation port of the original than a remake. I know the source code's gone missing, so we can't have a brand new port, but a decompilation, recompilation of Saga would go a long way. I don't want a remake like this. Anyway, catch you next time. Bye-bye.